we've had a lot of successes over the last couple of years, and we've actually received requests from other health departments, particularly in this region, to come and help them, and I call it paying it forward. Helen and Lisa and the clinical team and the clerical team have gone to Gadsden County and to Santa Rosa County and helped them transition to their electronic health record and introduce some more efficiencies into their clinics that allow them to see more clients like we have here. Our environmental health team has supported the Wakulla County environmental health program when they were perilously low on staffing, trying to refill low staffing. And then the last thing I'll say is I wanted to give you just a brief financial report. Our budget, our fiscal budget for this year is $2.1 million. And that breakdown is 31% of that money is comes from general revenue. 39% of that money comes from grants. And 30% of that money are local funds. And the local funds are primarily the clinic fees, the environmental health fees, and the support that we receive from you. So I thank you for letting me just kind of give an overview. We protect and promote, and we're making infrastructure improvements, I think, that improve our ability to do that. So are there any questions for me?
Any questions from the commissioners? I have one comment on the WIC program.
Yes, sir.
Are we getting this message out to the public, not just providing the service, but letting them know the importance, as you stated earlier?
You know, that's actually a good suggestion. We recently actually had the WIC program office from Tallahassee come and just do an orientation for our staff, because, you know, we hire new staff fairly often, and you just assume that everybody knows what WIC is, but that's not true. There's a lot to what makes a family eligible for WIC, and once they're eligible for WIC, there's all kinds of levels of risk that family experiences, and there's different levels of benefits they get associated with that risk. So we did training for our own staff, but advertising, and I need to actually get that position that I'm committed now to bringing in locally to go with what comes from Tallahassee. When we get that set up, we'll advertise that so folks know what's available.
And I think that would help increase the participation rate.
Yes, sir.
I know you're bringing in people from Tallahassee along with your staff, but getting the message out to the public is very, very important if you expect to increase participation.
I agree.
And the benefits of that, and the benefits to the children or the mothers that are participating in that, I think is very crucial to get out to the public. And that's the only comment I have.
Okay.
Any comments from the board members? Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next would be Ms. Kim Wren, estuary request. Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kim Wren.
Morning.
Is that better? I'm the Assistant Manager and the Stewardship Coordinator at the Apalachicola National Estuarine Research Reserve over in East Point. I wanted to come in this morning to talk to you about a couple projects that we're working on to keep the county in the loop, to continue collaboration with the county, and get your input, and then answer any questions you might have about the projects. You should have maps, but I also have hard copies.
I didn't get the.
Oh, okay. I sent it Thursday, but I did bring hard copies.
Yes, sir.
So I'll wait for you to get those. The first project I'd like to talk about is improvements to Millender Park. It's over there next to our office on the water.
Is that the small diagram or the large?
It's the smaller one, yes. Yeah, the smaller diagram. Sure. So this park is heavily visited. It's a great little spot down there on the water, and our goal is to improve the ADA access to the park. We recently received some funding through the Florida Coastal Office's Ecotourism Initiative. We're going to do this in a phased approach. We do get funding each fiscal year. So our fiscal year begins in July. So our phase one, what we're calling our phase one, would be enhancing the handicap parking and installing a sidewalk to the picnic pavilions out there. As part of phase two, we're looking at coordinating with the county on the road removal after Hurricane Hermine. The road down there is in pretty bad shape. So we're looking at removing some of that rubble, enhancing that area, and then we'd like to develop a vehicle turnaround area that you can see on the map down there that would go to the water. A lot of folks park down there, so again, we're going to have to enhance some of the parking that is on that east side, kind of point folks in that direction to park there, because we'd like to do a kayak launch eventually down on the beach. As part of this Phase 2, we'd like to have design plans done so we can look at this observation platform. The area down there that's circled, that's the vehicle turnaround, the road rubble removal. It's circled in yellow. The area that's in red, that red box, is the kayak launch area. And then we have our overlook platform. We're talking about something that's maybe 20 by 20 feet. It'd have a bench. It'd be in the shade. It would also be ADA accessible, so folks could sit down there and enjoy the view. With future thoughts of doing a pier or something, so folks could get out over the water, over that breakwater, and then also having that be ADA accessible, so folks could enjoy the view or fish in that area. The breakwater construction will continue as part of our Cap Point Living Shoreline project. That's something that's scheduled for 2018. So as part of that project, we will leave a gap in that area for these future ideas with the kayak launch and the pier.
The turnaround area that you were mentioning, basically a cul-de-sac?
Basically,
Well,
yes, yes.
Oh, okay. And on the living shoreline, the breakwater living shoreline, they're putting those all over the country. The only thing about a living shoreline that concerns me that it needs to be signage put up, because if they go out there and somebody sees one pretty oyster and eats that thing
Right,
and gets sick, it comes back against the commercial industry
sure.
as a Vibrio sickness, illness, possibly death. Living shorelines has always caused a huge concern for me because of the commercial industry that we have here in Franklin County. I know the meaning of it is for water quality. I mean, I understand all that.
Sure.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it needs signage on it. It needs to be monitored that nobody is out there wading around that living shoreline. And you know, it kind of gives me pause, because if they eat one bad oyster and they don't know where it come from, well, it's Apalachicola Bay. That illness counts against us, which means FDA regulations get tighter and tighter based on the number of illnesses that you have in Apalachicola Bay and across the country. So living shorelines give me a little bit of a headache. I've been dealing with living shorelines for about 10 years now, so I understand the meaning of it, and I understand the good aspects of it. But from a commercial fisherman myself and working the commercial fishing industry, I understand the importance of so I'd like to suggest that we put signage on that.
Sure.
Whether not fit for human consumption, or just warning the visitors in general that even though we have oysters growing here and we're using that for water quality, that they're unfit for human consumption.
No, that's a great point. And we do have plans to put a kiosk down there. We have one now, but we're going to need to move it with these plans, and we can definitely add information about
Yeah,
that.
and not only for this area, but if they visit another area that has they'll have the education, so to speak.
Sure.
That, you know, these things are not for human consumption, they're strictly for water quality, and, you know, I just had to put that out there.
Sure.
You know.
No, great point.
Any other comments from the commissioners on their request here?
Yeah,
This is just on one aspect, this is one project.
One project,
Right.
correct. I've got two to talk to you about this morning.
And Kim, just to follow up, see, that's the Els Court property out there in east of town that we are gonna acquire through the Trust for Public Lands. That's the same thing we're doing basically there, leaving it very passive, not no overbuilding or anything. But now, at the end of Millender Street, you are doing good work right here, because there is a lot of rubble right down in there. And I love the ADA, access there.
It's a heavily visited site, so we'd like to make it, open for all folks to get down there and enjoy.
And maybe y'all can put in for a grant to remove them 1 or 2 oysters there. And that way won't nobody, that won't pop up. I mean, state might give you some money if you put in for it.
Any other comments from the commissioners on this particular project that she's showing us?
I'd just like to ask something if I could. Are there any other things that you think would need doing? How is the overall paving of the road in your opinion? How is it, overall, how's it gonna look? In other words, we don't wanna build and make everything else nice, but get into it. I know the rubble at the end is part of it, I'm just asking your opinion.
It's in bad shape at the end of the road.
Okay.
I think the area, where we want to do the vehicle turnaround, I think that's okay, that's going to be fine. It's just at the end of the road, we'll need to think about getting that material out of there and then maybe creating more of a natural slope
Right.
there so we can have an area where folks could access this kayak launch.
Thank you.
But, sure.
Any other comments from the commissioners on this first project?
Okay.
Proceed.
So the second project I'd like to talk to you about this morning is Unit 4, or East Hole. It's located on St. George Island, east of the bridge. It runs east and west. It's about 77 acres. It consists of one single large parcel of 7.2 acres, and then about 253 individual residential building lots. We do have a parking area at 6th Street. It used to have a gazebo there, but that was old and falling down, so we removed that. We've enhanced the parking there at 6th Street. We get a lot of visitation for folks to go down and fish and enjoy that area at St. George Sound. It's also part of the Great Florida Birding Trail. It consists of estuarine salt marsh habitats, wet flatwoods, and scrub habitat. The site is fragmented via the platted county roads. We were fortunate to get some funding from the Division of Recreation and Parks to do some land management, get our lands, public lands in maintenance mode if they weren't already. This area is, it really is a gem, but it hasn't been burned in many years, and we have a wildland urban interface situation there with the homeowners. And so we're looking at, our goal is to safely and effectively reduce the heavy fuels on this management zone to allow staff to do this burn. So we're not looking at burning now. We want to prepare the site for future burning efforts. We did coordinate with Florida Forestry Service in 2012 to burn the site, but there was an approaching storm and some other issues, so we only got about 12 or 15 acres completed. And then it wasn't burned prior to that, 1999, so it's been quite some time. I have been contacted by some property owners over concerns of wildfires. Right now, this area does lie along the Florida Circumnavigational Saltwater Paddling Trail. So we do have a campsite out there, but we do have a sign that deters folks from having fires. That's not to say we don't have any enforcement, so folks can do what they like. But there is a concern that the fuel level has just gotten really heavy and needs to be addressed. So for this project, we're seeking the county's approval to reestablish the right-of-ways for access. If you look at the map that I gave you, those areas that we'd like to mow are the areas with the blue line. The Florida Forest Service did work with the county in 2012 to get those sites mowed, but they haven't been maintained, to my knowledge, since then, so they've grown up pretty heavy. I'm joined this morning by Dylan Shoemaker. He is the St. Joseph Bay State Buffer Preserve Manager. He's also our burn boss, so he can answer any questions on the preparation and on the plans for future burning, and as far as equipment that'll be used and so on. But those areas in blue are the areas to be mowed, and then you have your blocks of yellow. Well, first of all, let me tell you, the areas that are outlined in yellow, that's our property, that's state property. And then the areas in red are where we're looking at disking. So that's more, that's heavier than just mowing. It's a 12-foot disc line, I believe, and that's to really protect those private property owners while we're burning. And then the yellow blocks are additional mowing areas.
So the red is on the back side of the property line?
Yes, exactly. And we're having a survey done so we can be sure where our property line is and where private property is because of a recent incident we've had on the island. We want to be sure we're in the right spot. But we also want to be sure that we adequately get that distance to protect the property, the homes.
So you're saying the blue lines that you're requesting to mow are actually county road ends or
Right-of-ways. alleys.
right-of-ways
Mhm.
that have not been maintained? Of course, that's through the state property, is what it looks like, but we do have control of those.
Yeah,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, when this property was bought by the state of Florida, the county did not abandon the roads in this area, so we
Okay.
still own the roads and they own all the private lots.
So what you're requesting as far as the mowing is just the permission from the commission to actually go in there and mow, and you're not going to be disking those lines?
We will not be disking those
Okay,
lines.
okay.
Now, in the future, we'd like to continue the conversation to maybe see about us taking over those areas so we can continue to maintain them. I have an interest in doing a hydrology restoration out there to restore that site, back to its original condition as much as we can for further protection to the bay, but that's maybe a future conversation that we can talk about.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Kim, you got right here, you got gates going into the property. Is it gonna be open sunrise to sunset or something like that? Or are you gonna just keep part of it closed off, or?
While we're burning or prepping, yeah, we will have signs
I
up, I
see
believe.
you've got gates.
Yes, we do. Yeah, so those will be closed. There will be signs. Also, as part of this, we'll talk to each homeowner out there to let them know what we're doing and what future plans are. Dylan, that will be his responsibility to get in touch with these folks so they're in the loop.
Well, and I know, but y'all know how I am. I've always been like this. Public dollars buys public land for public use, and I do not like gates. And so that's the reason why I was asking, making sure that you know, you're able to keep them out when you need to be doing the work, but then allow the people in there when it's appropriate.
Sure.
So that's my big thing, but that's the reason why I asked you about the gate in there.
My thing is, if they don't 85% of this area now, I ain't for getting them no more. If they ask for it, you know, I'm gonna be against it.
Yes, sir.
They own too much now. I mean, private people need to get stuff.
Okay. And maybe we could continue to coordinate just with getting that access when we need it too, for the burning, because that's really important to do at that spot.
You can proceed.
Okay, well, that was really the end of my presentation. We just, like I said, I wanted to keep you in the loop and let you know about these two projects. We've been talking to Michael about them, so we're here to answer questions and wanted to get your feedback on Millender Park too. See what you thought about that, so.
Any other comments from the commissioners on this project number 2? Well, I guess we will need a motion and a second on the, allow them to mow these road ends in the preparation of this burning project, so.
Yes.
Pleasure of the board on that issue.
Make a motion. Only mow.
Yes, what's what I'm understanding, they're just gonna mow, no discing. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? I think it's advantageous to allow them to mow this. It basically provides another fire break without having to disc. I mean, so we're all
Correct.
about public safety. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion by the board? All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for coming in.
Sure.
Chairman.
Yes. The board will take a 5-minute recess. Is everybody ready? Is everybody ready? Board of County Commissioners is now back in session. Next on the agenda will be Mr. Kirk Blair, TDC report.
Morning, Commissioners. Happy New Year, I guess. For me, it is. You received our report in your packet, and I just wanted to report to you on a number of numbers issues. Collections report, collections are in for October, and this is the first month of the fiscal year. Collections recorded are up a little over $20,000 from last October, which is a pretty whopping 26% over last year. Once again, I would caution you that month-to-month numbers tend to level out by the end of the year. So, but nonetheless, the trend is good. So we're happy with, that the industry is going strong. For 2016, our visitor centers saw 26,494 visitors, and this compares to a little over 23,000 in 2015. And we had, and I've attached a report from our internet activity. We've had, this shows that, let's see, what does it show here? And we have, we started with a little over 40,000 visits in 2009, which is when we really got active in our in the promotion of our website and our internet activities. Last year, we had a total number of visits of 235,361. So we're building, this is critical to what we do with the collection of email addresses. That's one part of our regular monthly marketing. And I've talked to you about the internet, or rather the email addresses. We've now got over 42,000 email addresses that we market to every month in the form of our newsletter, promoting events, promoting activities, encouraging people to return. So those visits to our website are how they get into our system, and we're very, very encouraged that we had such a good response this year. So those are the first two reports you see. We've been working over the last couple of months to clean up some of our policies and procedures. Really what that means is that over the last year or so, we've made some changes or policy decisions on some of the things in our policies, and Michael and I have been working through some of those changes. And what I've provided you today in your packet is a summary of the proposed changes to our policies and procedures. I can basically summarize them into a couple of categories. We've got some clearly substantive amendments, and then we've got editorial things like we've changed the address, we changed the phone number, we've changed the hours to reflect what our meeting dates are and when they are. Those are pretty administrative. One of the first changes that I wanted to bring attention to was in the selection process, and this First Amendment clarifies the process for organizations that appoint or recommend appointments to the TDC board. You know, there are 3 local governments plus the recommendations from the 2 chambers, and then this amendment clarifies that when an existing board member's term is up, there are 4 remaining board members whose term comes up alternately every year. When one of their terms is up, the TDC can bring to you a recommendation that you consider reappointing them before we go through the whole lengthy advertising process. And that was really just an attempt to, if a person that's been on the board for a term and wants another term, our board generally recommends it, and it saves people, going through the application process and attending meetings and being interviewed if that is what tends to be the recommendation by the board to begin with. So that was one of the substantive changes that we've got in this document. The second substantive change is currently our policy says that if you've missed 3 meetings without an excused absence, and the 4th meeting you're automatically off the TDC board. We've made an amendment to that, which basically says that you can get, if your absence is accepted, you notify the board in advance and say you're not going to be there, you've got a family issue, the TDC board can accept your absence, and that doesn't qualify for removing you from the board. We've added the reimbursement, a reimbursement policy. It inserts in the policy document a proposed change made earlier last year to do business with TDC board members. And basically what it does is, and we brought this to you when we had this discussion earlier, basically what this does is say that TDC board members can't, as a rule, do business with the TDC, and that remains the same. It does allow for certain instances where they can, and this is specifically in the area of we do a bunch of events, and we do, we get people coming down and visiting, and we put tours together, and some of our board members are lodging providers and restaurant owners and all that sort of thing. So what this allows is we can do business with a board member if it's determined in advance that they're a sole source, they're the only one in the county that can provide this service, which is pretty typical, or that we demonstrate in advance that this is all part of a rotation process where everybody has equal access to, these arrangements. And this would be, for instance, when we bring a writer in or somebody that wins one of our getaways, we put them up generally for a couple of days, a couple of nights, and after we get through all of the lodging, we rotate amongst the lodging providers, a board member that has a lodging facility is eligible to be considered. We get that all done ahead of time, and everybody knows about it, but that was the change we made to that. The other items are, one other thing, we've instituted a change in our conflict of interest procedures for board members and staff. A lot of our members are on boards of other committees, other organizations. A number of them are in business with other vendors. In the event that we have a book now, we've instituted at the office. In the event a board member gets a gift from somebody that we do business with, and this applies to the staff as well, we'll record it in the book. It'll all be above board. Everybody will have an opportunity to know when something of value may have been received by a board member. Not to suggest that that would be done inappropriately, but just to keep it all out in the open. And so we've encouraged our board to participate with that. And the same is true with the staff. And and as I say, most of the other things are editorial changes that results from different, meeting date changes and locations. Anyway, that's the summary of the policy changes that are in this document. As I say, Michael and I have worked through it for a couple of weeks. He may have something he wants to say about it. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
As Mr. Blair previously stated, Attorney Schuler, you have reviewed the changes.
I have reviewed the changes. The only thing that I would add to the last item on the book that you're keeping is that there are some state laws that govern the reporting of gifts that would apply to the TDC. So that you have to comply with those in addition to whatever.
Yes.
However it is you're memorializing those in-house.
Yes.
If you have any questions, just get with me and I'll make sure that we follow the statute.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. But yes, with that addition, yes, I have reviewed and don't have any issues or further recommendations to the board on the policy changes.
Is there any action required by the board?
Yes, these are part of our document of policies and procedures which you've approved when we started, and these are amendments to them, and we would ask that you approve the amendments.
Pleasure of the board.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to go ahead and approve contingent to the attorney getting with Kurt and making those statutory requirements made. So I'll make that motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is we reported several months ago that a grant has been approved by the Department of Economic Opportunity to help design and promote a US 98 corridor that would highlight coastal communities. The whole idea of this is to begin appealing to people, that, a market we've identified, frankly, since we opened the visitor center in East Point, of the people that are down in and around Orlando looking for something else to do, and being able to present to them that this is an area unlike Orlando that is historic and is coastal and has a lot of interest in maritime culture. So the initial grant includes Franklin, Taylor, and Dixie counties, with anticipation that other counties would be added in the future. The application was submitted on behalf of the 3 counties in the Regional Planning Council, and DEO and RPC have proposed a contract with Franklin County to administer the grant through my subcontract with the county. The TDC voted last week to recommend the county participate in the grant. Unfortunately, with the delays at DEO and the holidays, the final contract with DEO has not actually gotten in hand. Michael and I have been working through this, and I think our suggestion would be that if it's to your will that the county authorize the acceptance of the grant and subject it to the approval by the county attorney of the, and authorize the contracting for the work. Now, I was on the phone this morning with DEO. They have assured me that it is on its way, but we haven't actually received it yet, so I think Michael was hesitant to go very far with that until we did.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Attorney Schuler, can you give us your recommendation on that?
Well, there's two questions that the board has to address. The first question is what you already heard, is whether or not the board wants to accept or reject the, any offer of this grant from the ARPC. The other question has to do with who's going to actually administer the grant. I think the board needs to have a brief presentation on that as well. But I think you're asking to make both decisions this morning, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
If you would.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I mentioned that. What the expectation would be is that you would contract with our firm to complete the work. I will tell you that it is, as is mentioned in the scope of work that I provided you, there are 4 deliverables. The first one is might near completed. We're just waiting for a signed DEO contract before it gets billed for. But our expectation is that we would do the work, and I would coordinate with the other 2 counties to get the work done. It involves collecting information on their events and activities and getting it written and, all those sort of things.
And Commissioners, the issue that I looked at was whether or not there was any prohibition of the county entering into a contract, the TDC applying for a grant, the county receiving the grant, and then contracting out with, was it Allen Inc., the firm that administers the TDC. I don't find that there's any conflict of interest that would prohibit the board from awarding that grant contract to Mr. Blair's firm, if that is the desire of the board. I looked at whether or not there were any federal funds involved. I asked Kurt to check with, since he was the person who applied for the grant on behalf of the TDC, are there federal funds involved? Because if there are federal funds involved, then that new super circular restriction would apply. In this case, there are no federal funds. I asked Kurt to find out whether or not there were any further restrictions on the county that would be imposed by DEO or RPC in terms of restrictions and limitations on how you award the grant to be administered to, Kurt's firm or any other firm. There were no other restrictions imposed by the state agencies. The state conflicts laws do not prohibit the award of the grant administration to Kurt's firm. In your local bid policy, although you do have a requirement for bidding out any purchases of tangible items above $10,000, your bid policy does not require you, you can, but you are not required by local bid policy to bid out a services contract. So I think I've carefully looked at all the different nuances of this particular issue, and I can report that there is no technical violation of any ethics laws that would prevent you from awarding the grant administration to Kurt's firm.
If the board should move forward with this, the motion should be made contingent upon them receiving the award of funds.
That's correct. It's a $75,000 grant.
Mm-hmm. And one of the issues, Mr. Chairman, that we discussed at TDC the other day was they were wondering why, Franklin County did this and not Dixie and Taylor. But see, the ARPC, the Appalachia Regional Planning Council, only represents Franklin County. Dixie and Taylor is a North Central Region Planning Council. So it's two, that's the reason why the planning councils can't do it. It's because there's 2 different planning councils. So it's going to have to come to one of the counties to do it. So that's the reason why it was like that. But, and again, I don't have a problem making a motion to approve this contingent that it is DEO grant funding that we will be receiving. If we do not get the grant funding, then there will be no work, scope of work.
There seems to be a delay in Tallahassee, and we discuss this about every meeting, where things approved last year have still not been funded. So that's the reason I would caution about having the contingency there of receiving the contract before beginning any work, so that we don't expend any local funds.
Mr. Chairman, before I let you entertain that motion, would you if it be your pleasure, please ask Kirk to re-identify why the three counties are coming together and what the grant is all about.
Okay, Mr. Blair.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. This is a grant that ultimately is envisioned to bring together participation from the counties, likely starting with Levy County, where Cedar Key is, all the way up the coast to Port St. Joe. And that would, the grant objective is to get that route identified and get a series, collect the information on what maritime activities and events and venues are in those counties that can be promoted, and the grant includes developing a marketing strategy for promoting the area. Now, when we first started this was last May, I think. It came out of some conversations I had when I participated in the trade show up in Wisconsin, because we had a chance to work with a couple of the rural counties. When we first started this, we envisioned the whole 7 or 8 counties to be involved. When we actually sat down with DEO on the grant, we had about a week to put it together, and before their deadline. And so we started with counties at both ends and one in the middle. And they were Dixie, Taylor, and Franklin. This grant includes contacting all of the other counties in that, along that route, US 98 corridor, to gain their participation in the project as well. And that would be the second year of the activity.